All right, welcome to episode 111 of the Audioslave podcast. We are back at it another week. I'm your host, Anthony. I'm joined, as always, every single week, Tony, Nate. How you gentlemen doing?
Yo, I'm doing great.
Not every week, but I'm happy to be back. And yes,
You missed 1 week, Nate. I mean, God.
I mean, it stings for me, but yes, 111. If you're 111, then I'm nerd.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you missed 1 week, and the week that you missed, we talked to Mike Hartsfield a couple weeks back. You missed that one, just the conversation, but you were on the episode, so we found a way to. We always find a way because that seat is yours.
It's like show regret. Like, fuck, did I try everything? Like, I literally was speeding home because couldn't do it, and I guess fucking bummed. But yes,
smart though. You didn't get in an accident, and you got you got a family. We don't need any of that crap.
I know. All right, safety.
The nerd seat's always warm. We'll be back at it as we are, and this is probably dropping a couple of days earlier than we usually do, because we had, I don't know, one of the bigger for us nerdery guests that we've ever had, right?
Yeah, a badass name, a badass dude. We had Sergio Vega from Quicksand and Deftones fame. What a fucking cool dude. We're big fans of all the music that he's put out. He's doing some production work too. And he came on and just geeked out with us basically. And obviously fresh off the press, recently left Deftones as a collaborator. So I got into that a little bit. And Quicksand, that legacy, and everything in between. So it was a pleasure to talk with this guy. I never thought we'd get him on. So this was a big one for us.
Right on. We're going to get into it right now with Sergio Vega.
Hey guys, Tony here. If you like what you hear, go back and listen to some of our other interviews. We had Frank Maddocks, the VP of Creative at Warner, who's a longtime collaborator with Deftones. Brian Fair of Shadows Fall. Phil Lipscomb of Taproot. Tucker Rule of Thursday, who we talk about a little bit with Sergio coming up here. And, all that stuff is on audioslave.com. We've had a bunch of interviews, a bunch of cool conversations between the three of us, new podcast friends, all kinds of stuff back there. So audioslave.com or at Audioslave on all of the social media platforms. Thank you.
All right. We are here with the one, the only Sergio Vega. Sergio, we appreciate you hanging out with us this afternoon. And it is an afternoon, which is rare for us, usually at night. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Anthony and Tony and Nathaniel. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Having a good, it's spring starting to finally make its way out in New York, and just kind of enjoying the vibes and enjoying just living life.
Nice.
Yeah, we can relate being up in Maine. Well, 2/3 of us up in Maine, but we're huge Quicksand fans, legacy Deftones fans throughout the years. Quicksand Slip is I would say, if there's, of the guests we've had on this podcast, if there's one record that comes up the most from our guests, it's Slip.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
We did a comfort food album episode in Tucker Rule of Thursday, without hesitation. Quicksand Slip.
That's awesome. I mean, he's a sweet dude. He's a talented dude, and he presents himself just well in life. Like, he just always looks good. And he's nice, and his family and everything, and just like any chance I get to be around him is always uplifting.
Yeah, Tucker was a lot of fun. We talked to him before Christmas last year, and then saw him here in Maine, and dude is a beast behind the kit. So
oh, he is. I mean, yeah, without a doubt. And Thursday is a great band, and they're all friends. And Quicksand got to do a small run with them in Australia a couple of years ago.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, I like touring with bands because you get to know a little bit more about them. And I think for people like seeing the Revelation poster behind you, you value knowing people, the community. You're from a place and a scene where, like, knowing the bands and knowing the people really help in terms of just kind of understanding where people are coming from and appreciating them on that level. I think that's what makes people like us gravitate towards the kind of music that we do.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I would agree with that for sure.
So, Sergio, a little inside baseball here. I did have a Quicksand Manic Compression poster behind me about a week ago, and then we, learned that we were going to talk with you. And I'm like, I'm not going to be that guy that has a poster of the guy I'm talking to behind me, so I'm going to swap it out.
Oh, well, Revelation is like our first home, so I appreciate seeing that. It makes me feel
right on.
Makes me feel good.
Yeah. Don't wear the band T-shirt to the concert kind of thing.
Exactly, that type of thing.
I'm the guy who wears his own band shirt, so.
Oh, okay. I should have done it then.
I've been known to wear a Audioslave hat, so it happens, right?
Gotta rep it.
I mean, why not?
So speaking of repping, recently you were at the Grammy Awards, which is pretty crazy. We've never gone, obviously. So talking to you, checking that out, we're just curious. We've never seen the inner workings of the Grammys, but there's rumors on the little kind of tidbits, like the basket, like everyone gets a little gift bag. Like what's in that gift bag?
Yes. My wife and I went to the Grammys together, and we got
Nice.
2 gift bags, and they were filled with all vegan facial creams and toners and pretty good stuff, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, it worked really well.
Yeah, we saw the photo of you with the Grammy on the red carpet, looking very dapper in your suit.
It looked like I was actually holding a Grammy. It was just behind me, and I just kind of...
It was legit.
But it was an amazing experience, having the opportunity to go there, having compositions that I'm a part of creating and recording, be honored in that way. It was the first time, and it was something that really still means a lot to me. Mm-hmm. And it was an event that I really cherished. I didn't get into music thinking Grammys, thinking anything, get into music. But at that point in my career, to have something that I'm proud of be acknowledged in that way by any sort of body, was a very nice thing. And
nice.
As far as the inner workings are concerned, the people behind it, the people at the Recording Academy were so nice, and they responded so quick to anything, any emails, any texts. And I can imagine how many people were probably hitting them up. But anytime there was any need for exchange or information, they would reach me in seconds. So it was my first Grammy, and I know it was the first time in Las Vegas, so I think it was a bit different for people who had experienced multiple ones. But my wife and I had the time of our lives.
Nice. That's awesome.
That's awesome. We actually had another question kind of associated with that, because we had another guy on here, Greg Bergdorf from the band Zebrahead. He was nominated for, actually I think they won, right? They got a Grammy when they helped Lemmy from Motorhead re-record a Motorhead song.
That's cool.
He was kind of telling us some cool backstory. Do you remember where you were, where you got the call for the Grammy nomination?
Home. I was home, and just kind of kicking it at home. I have like you can see behind me, I have like a little home recording setup. And obviously we're still kind of dealing with the aftermath and really still being in the pandemic to a certain extent. And we're just kind of home mostly and just working on music and working on things and getting that email. Actually, wait, when I got the official call, that's how that happened. When I got the email, actually. Nice. But strangely enough, I was at a convention with my wife, and it was an anime convention that she was a guest at, and someone came up to me and said, "Yeah, congratulations on the Grammy." And I was like,
"Oh, nice.
What are you talking about?" I was like, it was like an acquaintance who's like a DJ, and I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And then shortly thereafter, I got the email. It was a really nice surprise.
It's interesting, like the rock awards, the metal awards, like it's almost this like secret award, because we don't see it live as fans. It's like it happens almost like it happens before. So when you're there, do they do those awards live, but they just don't air it? Is that how it works?
In a different location. So a majority of the awards are in what they call the pre-telecast, and that's a majority of it. And there's still some substantial awards. They're just not telecast. Like I think the way that the telecast part is so like performance heavy, and which was an amazing to see. And it's just like the creme de la creme of whatever is the most, I think has the most mass appeal at the time.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So they give some of the key type awards out then, but the overwhelming majority of them are on a pre-telecast in a different location. And it was still, really nice production and really nice to see. There were performances there as well, but there were a lot more awards.
Wow. Yeah, just I know watching it as a fan at home that night, it's a lot of performances. It's a lot of, you get like a handful of awards smattered throughout, but it's like, here's another performer, and now we're going to go up to the roof, and here's people up there performing, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, for me, it was amazing to see. My wife said something interesting. She's like, in order to see all of these bands, like to pull that together, like if you had to buy tickets or and just the logistics of even just them coming through town, what that would mean, and to get to see everyone in one thing, even though they're playing a song, was phenomenal. And for me, as a performer, seeing these bands, how great they were live and how powerful it sounded live. Everybody, I have, it really gave me a profound respect for everyone. Like whatever I liked all of those bands already, or the projects or the artists, but like everything went up a notch because you're seeing that in that environment and seeing how just clean and solid and intense it was. It was super cool.
All right. So you mentioned, being at home, working on some stuff. The impetus to have you on is to talk about what you've got going on right now. I mean, obviously you've had the Quicksand record that came out last year, but you're starting a new kind of writing production project. What does that entail?
It's a cool project where it's a single-based thing. It's the idea of like, especially now, like focusing on Quicksand and the band that is like that I've been with a good chunk of my adult life and all of my career. And being someone who's just kind of like prolific in general, like wanting to write, wanting to do things, I'm always home demoing, I'm always doing stuff. And one day I was home and my wife on YouTube stumbled upon this producer who has a series of songs that he does with people. He does a song with an artist. It's mostly Latin based. It's all Latin, actually. It's like electronic or hip hop, urban Latin. And she's like, man, that's something that I could see you doing. And it's like a really cool project where you're doing a song with a person, they kind of just capture it on video, and it's that moment. And I was like, that really resonated with me, especially coming off of, making a couple of albums, having that momentum and always wanting to keep staying in a flow. So I called up a friend, Chris Enriquez, who is a drummer in the band Spotlights, as well as a solo artist. And we got to work. He has a space, he has access to a recording studio, and we started reaching out to singers. Say, hey, let's just do a song, and the vibe is like sit down, kind of have a conversation, get a vibe for a song, and then we just get to work. So we have a couple of songs we have one in the can, we have one that's about 3/4, and we just, the only name that I'll reveal, because like without putting external pressure, is just, we're really excited that we talked to Keith Buckley last week.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, nice.
It was our first meeting, and we resonated on a lot, just like our passion for music and just life in general. Like, so the three of us really hit it off, and it was like a really nice electricity. And in the spirit of capturing lightning in a bottle, I started ran over to my guitar and ran over to my setup behind me and just started getting to work. And like, something like that to me is something that was born from our circumstances and born from the momentum of my past few years and born from like kind of thinking of ways to be creative without the burden or onus of like, oh, we're going to build up a band, we're going to build up a project, like a song. And it's like almost like the first taste of a Sunday, it's like, oh my God, it's amazing. And then you just kind of like, that's it. You just do it. So We're very excited about that.
That's amazing.
So the thought is you guys are like the house band, and you'll bring in additional musicians and
possibly, because that's just something else that could happen as well. Like if, so currently, the songs that we've had, I'm doing, strings, the synths, Chris is playing the drums. We're going back and forth and fleshing out the song, and with the idea of being like really rapidly and trying to like, we always talk about we're going to turn a year into a month. How do you, and for me as a songwriter, it's like, how do you make quicker decisions? How do you develop things faster? And that's part of the excitement. So one of the ideas that I had recently from watching kind of like documentaries on music is the idea, you can actually also, people who do these kinds of things you can actually, why stay to a singer? Maybe you can feature a guitar player or somebody who can maybe do something better or different than I would. So that's on the table as well. But so far it's just been the two of us composing and laying down the music. And we have our friend Mario, the singer of Spotlights. He mixes and masters it for us.
Nice.
Man, this is a controversial subject, mainly for the reason that, Obviously, this is very exciting. Like, we're all stoked. I think all fans can agree that it's good to use your creative outlet, but at the same time, it's kind of a Maynard James Keenan type situation. Like, where do you delegate your time? If you were working on A Perfect Circle and Pussifer and making wine and all these things, maybe Quicksand, or in his case, obviously Tool, gets pushed aside. How do you delegate that time? Like, what does that mean for Quicksand? Is it prearranged or?
Well, all things inform each other. So
Okay.
the idea of doing a project like this is that it doesn't take time away. So, and the parameters that I put on myself are that I'm employing tunings and things and modalities that are outside the realm of Quicksand.
Okay.
So it's not like, oh, here's a Quicksand, here's a song, it can go to Quicksand and go to here. Like, it just wouldn't, and it gives me the freedom to play with tunings that I'm not burdened with having to now have guitars and play live and use for live and stuff like let's say with Deftones, I was up to 6 or 7 tunings, and that now puts the burden on you to have those instruments and backups for them for live. Mm-hmm. Quicksand uses 2 tunings that only require a couple of instruments. We're just changing one string, and so that's kind of how that works. And there's no rehearsals, there's no anything. So when Quicksand rehearses, I go, we work on Quicksand. Walter or Alan can come to my house. We can jam here. We have a rehearsal space, and anything else, I'm picking up a guitar and playing with ideas. Now, if you're staying in the flow, it means to me that I'm my time with Quicksand and my things come faster and quicker, and I'm a better player. And the same for Walter, and the same for Alan. Like Walter is producing bands, he's doing things, he's picking up guitars, he's working with other bands. There isn't the idea of it being a conflict. It's the idea if it actually makes us better with the time that we have and use it more efficiently.
Yeah, you're working different muscles, but in the scheme of trying to keep all of it tight, so you can get ideas from different places, I would imagine.
In the sense that, like, let's say, like with Quicksand's first tenure, it could take us a really long time to settle in on a song. And with how we're operating now, and with all of it, how we've all progressed, Walter came over here one day, we had a song that, in a day. It was not done, but it was like, here's the body of a song that now we can all, we can evolve as a band and give it the nurturing. But the actual impetus went from being like this long thing to being like, here's fast decisions, feel good, this is hot, this is cool, we got it. It's a demo, send it out to everybody, which is the last person being Alan. Then we're gonna put it through his filter, and so we're operating so much faster and better. So I do believe in keeping yourself busy.
Mm-hmm.
As a lifetime Quicksand fan, that's like, it brings such a smile to my face, because when I look at the time between albums, you're always wondering, all right, are they still together? And you guys have, in my eyes, have turned into a band that I'm like, that band will never be done. So to hear that, where things can possibly turn on a dime, it gets me really excited.
We're very excited. I think we've never been more excited about music, about the world around us. We have a different appreciation for each other and a reverence for what we're doing. And we've learned a lot. I think being apart as long as we have, and the experiences that we had as individuals really, really informed us. So it's a rare occurrence to have something be apart that long and come back together. And it's a rare occurrence to be, to have taken part in projects that have either long histories or a lot of bodies of work, and the newest things are still relevant. Those don't come easily. That comes with a lot of care and a lot of love and a lot of openness to just now.
Mm-hmm.
And you pulled it off. I mean, I think all 4 Quicksand albums are without a doubt Quicksand, but in my head, I can place the era.
Yeah. I mean, the hardest thing was coming back after 22 years and saying, like, what are we now? Like, we can't, where's the line between who we are now and what Quicksand is? It'd be silly to be not what you were and try to make a 3rd album, because, like, you should be up to your 8th album by now. So, like, where's that line? And that there wasn't an issue with writing. There was more an issue with, like, what are our parameters? And when we finally when it congealed and we're like, wow, this is us. And we can really say this is Quicksand. That made even moving forward. It gives you affirmation and confidence to move forward and even expand. So it's a nice thing, and I'm glad that you like it. I'm glad that it's appreciated because it means a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean we're big fans. It's all and not just of Quicksand, of just anything you've had your hand in. We've talked a little bit about the Quicksand stuff, what you're doing right now, and being part of the Deftones camp as the bassist collaborator with them for 10 years. The stuff that you did with them, we absolutely love too. I mean, and like you said, being relevant still today with a group that's been around for 25 years, and you did that with two separate groups, and that's pretty wild for most people don't get to do it with one, so you were able to do it with two, and that's pretty awesome.
Thank you. And it's never lost on me. It's like never lost on me, because part of the reason that I have an excitement still for music is because it's just I get the situation that I'm in, and I get it and I appreciate it, because I often think about what the amount of musicians are in the world, the amount that get to actually have someone interested in their music, it shrinks down. The amount that get to play on stage, the amount that get to make a living, the amount that get to have a career, and then it starts getting smaller and smaller. And there's so many factors, and it's not even about necessarily being the most shreddingest or the best singer, or there's so many things that are within and without your control that I appreciate every opportunity to make music or to play a show. And I bring that to anything that I do. Mm-hmm. So with getting into, working with Deftones, were old friends by that point. We met on the first Warped Tour. I had filled in for Chi in '99, and to come in at that crossroads, having that perspective was something that, again, was not lost on me, and something that I had a lot of appreciation and value for, and made sure to bring the best of myself.
So, I mean, everything that you just said makes sense why you would kind of do all these bands over the years and then kind of come full circle to this writing and production project. I think you have to be like a really special musician to do that, and you've done this pocket, and now you're going to, kind of form this, does it have a name? We didn't even ask.
Not when we're kind of talking how do we, let's say with Quicksand, I'm not big on external pressure. I'm not big on putting out things that now you have to
act on,
but then I'm also not into throwing nothing burgers out at people, or word salads that don't mean anything. So kind of, I'm trying to figure out what was the best thing to say. Is I just want to say that we're working with Keith in the song thing, and then build excitement around that, get some stuff together, and when we're ready to say what it's called, which to me is secondary to the what it is. And I want it to be further down the line so that it can be a thing, Mm-hmm. I think I don't know how many times we've probably seen people who have T-shirts before their things are together, and they all buy T-shirts.
And we'd buy it. That's the thing. We're the type that would buy it,
Yep.
But it has its own special kind of value, the thing that never existed.
Right.
And so you touched on a few things. We collect everything. We have boxes of old shit. I have this telephone pole flyer that's actually a Deftones Quicksand flyer from '98, I believe, at the State Theater in Portland, Maine. Mm-hmm. Super rad. And like you said, it's you've known the guys for a while. So you did have a stint with the guys for quite a while. You're a former collaborator with the Deftones, and we loved that phase of the band. I mean, we loved Chi. He was an awesome guy. But when you came to the band, as fans, we were like, there's no better guy for the job. And we're just curious, your story, your backstory. How did it happen? Obviously, you said you knew the guys, but there's so many guys. You're basically a Josh Freese, just you already have 3 other projects, and now you're jumping the Deftones camp. Mm-hmm. How'd that come about?
It was cool how we met in '95. I'll try to make it super succinct. Yeah. A friend said, "Hey, go check out this band. They're cool." And I was still in my little hardcore bubble. I was like, "Are they from the scene or what are they?" He's like, "They love Bad Brains. Go check them out." I went and saw them during the run they did, the leg they did on that Warped Tour. And I was like, wow, this has great energy. This is what I signed up for. Met them, we became acquainted, and it was nice. Fast forward a few years, I get a call to fill in for G. And, like at that point I had known him, I knew the guys. I felt really cool about it. I also had a connection with Chi in the sense that he plays Fender basses, and the reason he plays them was because he saw me kick a bass across stage and like picked it up with Quicksand, and it was still going and in tune, and like I'm very cathartic, and that was something that he brought as well. So him seeing that was like, oh, if this guy's doing this, and I'm messing with that gear, I'm messing with this, and so there was a connection, a synergy, and a mutual respect and admiration. So when I filled in for him, it was the same thing. It was like, hey, he went home, he's hurt. You bring that excitement, bring that thing, and even to the extent that it was like, kind of rolling and bringing. I always bring everything, and at some point, Chino asked me, hey, what if we asked you to join? And I was like, no,
Wow.
like that's Chi's your boy. This is exciting. This is cool. Rock, that's your guy. Like, I know this feels like it's a moment, but it's a moment. You have something great. And that was it, went on with our lives. And then in 99, it came, not in 99, I'm sorry, in 2009, it came around again. And what happened? It was is tragic.
Mm-hmm.
And they were kind of like at the tail end of Eros, they were starting to get along again, but the album, my understanding is that the album wasn't coming together in a way that they or the label liked. The label was just going to be like, I don't know. Nick and I came in, and they used, my understanding is that they used the money, like severance money that they would have given them to not release that record and just go, we're part ways, to fund Diamond Eyes. Mm-hmm. So all of between the tragedy and the emotion and everything going on and the excitement that Nick brought and the focus and everything, that was like a storm of energy that propelled, the writing and recording of Diamond Eyes. That was one of the quickest records that was ever made. And that energy just shot through the next 12 years as a collaborator with them. And that infected even when Quicksand reformed around the time of Cornel Yokan.
Oh, wow.
And, that was the deal. And it's like, I still feel the momentum of it.
Yeah. I mean, to be doing the stuff you're doing now and putting records out with Quicksand still, and it makes sense that you've honed it to make things move a little quicker because you've got the experience that you have. But to think like that energy was started so long ago and is still there, still going, is pretty wild. I mean, we love what you did with the band, and that era, like Nate said, is one of our favorites. That 10 years, 12-year stretch, starting with Diamond Eyes. Diamond Eyes is so great. Koi might be my favorite Deftones record, so to have you be part of that is and to talk to you about it is pretty wild to me. But yeah, how do you feel about the stuff that you put out with those guys?
Oh, it gives me, it's interesting and awesome because I in some ways I can be heady and think about like how things work and how you take that and use that to inform your next choices. And I thought of like, when I came into the band, I had some weird vision of a triptych, like a lot of my family visual artists. So I imagine, and when I think of Diamond Eyes, I think of like a boxer on the ropes. And it was a boxer getting off the ropes. And that was the energy that you need, you're kind of going to do something and you have to get up and you have to get yourself back to the center of the ring. And then I felt that Koi was, you got your focus, you got your thing, you're buoyed, you have a little bit of confidence, and Gore took that further in terms of its experimentation. And for me as a writer and a collaborator with the band in Diamond Eyes, I would like work myself in and be careful. So let's say like a song like Diamond Eyes, was a cool example of Nick's influence, because Abe and I were jamming out what was the chorus and the bridge of the song as like a loop. And to think of the visual aspect of it, it was like the poster behind me. In my mind, I was calling that Akira because of the time signature of those two parts. The way they undulate and fall on each other reminded me of a scene in Akira. And then Stefan had the body of the song, the verses, but they were separate entities. And Nick was like, hey, I think if you throw that together, you got gold.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
He was about quick.
Yep.
Go to Koi. I felt like a little bit more like, okay, this is fun and this is cool. And I felt like more established in there to the extent where I could say, oh, here's a whole piece, so here's like something that like became What Happened to You is like, here's a whole thing. Tempest, here's a whole thing. And it was funny with that bit because I was just jamming some things in the corner. Stefan was like, you guys are making noise and don't you hear this guy just wrote a song? And then Chino was like, wow, this is cool. I was just imagining what would Quicksand sound like now.
Wow.
And I felt more comfortable in like, what was my voice in Quicksand and what was that thing? Because Quicksand, wasn't existing, and I felt a lot more comfortable with that feel and that touch and applying it in another situation. And I learned something really valuable because I realized that I can, if you bring like a voice to something, it gets pulled and nurtured by other people who are doing different things. So like I can say with confidence, you bring a part to one band, it's going to come one way. If you bring a part to the other band, everyone's so creative and they're writers and it goes another way. So that was a real fun learning experience. And Gore furthered that. Gore furthered, like, I started using bass sixes and I started to be like, we had a lot of confidence and we're expanding our horizons. So with tunings, with me using a new instrument. And, so that to me is like this triptych. And then when I think of ohms, I think of it as then I'm now moving over to baseball, and that's like the cleanup hitter. That's everything that I learned from all of that. Now Quicksand being back together and everything that was going on, it was like, wow. And just personal changes in my life really, really informed that.
Nice.
It's one thing, like, we're, obviously massive fans of you, but it's one thing, when it was announced that you were joining the band, 10, 12 years ago, there's obviously a lot of hype, but then it's like, well, what are we going to get? And it just, like you said, kind of shot out of a cannon. It exceeded anything that we could have imagined. And then with Koi, I mean, that album is just a vibe, the whole aesthetic, visually, every part of it. And I'm curious though, what song did that turn into when you were kind of jamming in the corner and Chino was like, oh, it was Tempest. Oh, wow.
Tempest. And then would have fun with kind of like, because you're playing so many different tunings, you're doing things that I would kind of have fun throwing like for myself, because now with the understanding that like things get mutated in such a way that I started to have fun in like how like in video games there can be Easter eggs. I started to have fun with that in like writing in parts. So something like that became Rosemary, like the basis of that song is it's a different tuning, it's a different tempo, but it's like delusional. So I was like, that's actually delusional, but kind of like warped. Yep. And it's never going to sound like it because it's all different people. It gets taken a whole different place. But I started to enjoy the idea that and experiment with the idea that things and things that I employed, with Quicksand and that kind of stuff could find new ways of being expressed in another situation.
You mentioned different tunings and having a couple with Quicksand, but having like 6 or 7 by the end of your time doing stuff with Deftones. Do you like one more than the other?
No, it's interesting because like at first I would think, oh, this is like, why? But
right.
You realize that like, I quickly realized that these different tunings have different timbres and the same notes are colored differently. So especially when you have people playing in different tunings, and even if you're all hitting the same note, maybe like something like Swerve City, when we're all kind of playing the same exact thing, but we're in 3 different tunings, it colors it differently. Everything has a different shade, even though we're playing the same note, and that creates a wider wall. And some people in our camp, would notice that. And they go, oh, it's interesting. So, and there was never a premeditated thought about it. It was just about, this is the tunings we have in, and the fun thing about the arms race of like writing with people who are writing as well, and everyone's kind of like writing, usually the person who planted the seed of the idea has the easiest time playing it because they're doing it in a way that's convenient for their tuning, and everyone else just has to be like, okay, I got to make this work.
Yeah. And the map, the triptych you said, it's in your head already too, probably. So I see where this is going, whereas everybody else is like, where are you going? I'll follow you, but where are you going? I got to figure that out.
whoever, like if Stefan came up with a rip, like something that's an open string for him is not for everyone else. And if it's me, I'm doing it, it's like it's really easy for me to play, but now someone else has to figure it out and be like, oh, where do I find that? So those things are fun. Those are fun, like unintended aspects of creating in that environment.
Yeah, there's that dynamic writing, but also transferring those skills to a live set, right? Is there a lot of surprises that come about putting those songs out in concert? Like, oh, wow, this is turning out way different than I ever thought would be playing this song live, whether it's technical or...
I think by that point, everything's pretty dialed, but like more in the case of Quicksand, what happens is that the songs keep evolving. And usually I think with a lot of bands, I think they don't have the opportunity, you have a chance to get a song to a certain point, you're committed to a recording, but they're still like they're living. So things kind of, grow and change. With Quicksand is more open to usually playing with rearranging things or playing with expectations by altering the arrangement slightly. Mm-hmm. Whereas Deftones is just, we're playing the songs to faithful to the recording for the most part. Oh, wow. Occasionally, there's a couple of songs that get flipped around, but Deftones was more about just like staying faithful. Usually,
it's interesting because like sometimes you'll go see bands and they'll be like, well, this is a new song we've been working on, and you remember that version of it. Then the album drops and it's a little different. Yeah. You're tinkering with it, in the studio, or it's unfinished, but you want to get it out there.
Yeah. And it's a fun thing. I think people are more hesitant. It's changing again, but there was a period of people being very hesitant to showcase something that wasn't recorded yet, because that playing something live, or not released yet even, like playing something live is tantamount to releasing it now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I think with the current cultural shift, there's a shift towards transparency, taking people along for the ride, and people appreciate seeing the development of an idea. So seeing works of progress or work in progress as a public affair and like a community thing is something that people appreciate it. And artists are realizing, hey, this is kind of fun. I'm part of a collective that's like mostly art based, but has an audio component in some of the artists. But everyone is really like, yeah, like this is fun to show works in progress. Mm-hmm. And maybe even stream the process of doing it. And something like Shinoda does. He does a lot of making beats streaming while streaming. And that's, people, you get to realize you don't have to be behind this kind of curtain until it's perfect.
No, I mean, you're right. I see more and more of people showing the process and putting out, here's where we are right now. This may not be its final form, but we want to see what people think about it and what you like about it. And we want to get it out there because, this is how it works for us being creative, whether it be, in your own band or by yourself or making beats or making bass lines or any of that stuff. So the transparency is definitely there now. You're absolutely right.
No, it's fun. And I think, and people get a sense to me, it reminds me of the things that it's a continuation of the things that I liked about like a hardcore scene or any underground scene where you're all around each other. You see each other, you develop a different level of connection because there's a sense of community, and there's not the separation of like artist fan. It's more kind of like melded, and you can resonate with someone differently when you have that extra points of adhesion. So that was something that really came to a head, during lockdown especially, and I started doing Twitch, and people started to really get a sense for who I was. Mm-hmm. And it was something that I started to understand how little people knew about me.
I love that. I love what you just said, especially because I don't think the fans really care for a perfectly, curated product, I know I mentioned Maynard earlier, but Maynard and Trent Reznor had Tapeworm and it never came to fruition. And then Maynard ended up using one of the songs Passive for A Perfect Circle, and it's a great song. It's like, just release the music. Like no one cares for it to be perfect because there's going to be a fan of that style no matter what. And if anything, it works for commerce because you'll see, Spotify spins or whatever based on those tracks, and no matter what, that's going to cater to someone. Someone's going to like it. So,
yeah, and I even think like outside of the like business side of it, the kind of like I feel like the state of the world is such that we have more connectivity than ever. We're sitting here together we have more isolation than ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's being valued now is authenticity in a way, where I think there's always going to be a place for mysticism, and there's always a place for things that are larger than life. And so I don't think it's any one thing, but for certain situations, letting people underneath the hood or behind the curtain, I think is very much appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
It gives people an opportunity to relate to anyone on a better level, whether it be a musician or an artist or just a person, anything. Getting to see those aspects of their lives was something that is helpful, especially now. But there's still a place for, I think, the things that, like, I'm the man on the mountain, you don't know anything about me, like, this is large. That's cool too. It's all circumstantial or situational.
It takes the right person to pull, or band to pull that off too.
Yeah, it depends on the circumstances, what's going on.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, like the transparency aspect. Like, we're fans of music. We bought every music magazine on the stands, from Circus and Hit Parader to Rolling Stone. But at the end of the day, like, we weren't reading the questions that we wanted to, or the answers we wanted to know. Like, that, it just wasn't out there. So we're like, fuck it, we'll do it ourselves. So we have the platform to do it now. Whereas before it was like, hopefully Spin, a magazine, or, alternative press will ask the right questions. But no, it's always the same format, and it gets a little boring over time. And I'm assuming it gets kind of boring for you guys too. I think
a lot of it depends on the investment of the people in the conversation.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool. Like, you guys are invested in it, right? So you have a path, and that shapes things. I think you could say the same for artists that you talk to. There could be someone who's just mailing it in, or someone who's just like, whatever. And then that doesn't make for a good connection. Right. And for me, there could be the person who's doing an interview of you who's not really interested or doesn't care about either you or even being an interviewer. It was just kind of a thing. So,
right.
That makes sense. So these things are not boring inherently. It's just a chance to talk and process music, which is like my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, and the longer form, the 5 minutes, it's going to be in print or it's going to be in Rolling Stone, is cool, and it served its purpose at the time, or even a radio hit. But this longer form podcast stuff has certainly, I think, pulled back that curtain a lot more in different places that never saw that before. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm super happy that we get to do it. And I'm glad that somebody like you was able to come on and talk with us.
Well, I appreciate it. You guys do it well. It's fun to talk. So
thank you.
It's a fun conversation. It makes it, feel comfortable, and you guys know what you're doing.
Yeah, appreciate that.
So Sergio, you mentioned the writing production project. Obviously, it sounds like maybe Quicksand has something going on. So if we were fans of you, where should we focus our attention? What can we kind of keep an eye out on, or eye out for?
Well, Quicksand's always my first home. Yeah, that is my home. And everything else is, I take everything seriously. And I don't know, I'm kind of online. I'm available. I'm always down to talk, always down to chop it up.
Awesome, Sergio. You nailed it too. You said you take everything seriously, and down to this interview, to the music, and the way you perform. As fans, we definitely appreciate all of it. So thanks for coming on tonight. We really, or this afternoon for that matter.
Thank you. I appreciate every opportunity, and I appreciate this one a lot. So thank you.
Thanks, Sergio.
All right, late.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. That was our conversation with Sergio Vega of Quicksand, his new endeavor where he's pulling in some big names to help him out with that. That'll be fun. I can't wait to hear what they've got in the hopper with Keith Buckley. I mean, damn, that's exciting stuff.
Hot damn. Yeah, it is. It's Keith is currently apart from Every Time I Die, so we'll see what comes from that, and who knows, maybe it could turn into something more than just a one-time thing. The wheels are spinning as he was talking, which is like, all right, well, how frequent is he going to do this? Who's going to collaborate? But as music nerds as we are, that's something I'm going to check out, especially with him involved. And if Keith is tip of the iceberg, it's like, well, who's next?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fresh off the press, we always get some like new tidbits on this podcast, which is music to our ears as nerds. Like, oh shit, where are we first to market with this? Oh, this is cool. Secondary to that, off air, we were talking about the fact that we have our house bands on here, namely Deftones and Foo Fighters and a bunch of bands. But we're starting to get those members on the podcast, which when we first put this together, we never thought this would ever happen. So, and even Quicksand for that matter, like, the bands that influence the bands like Deftones. So it's really becoming something bigger than we thought. I think we always are starting to be able to relate with the talent, where it's like, oh wow, like I set to do this out of passion, but I didn't think it was going to become a thing where I was headlining a world tour. Not that we're at that level, but the fact that we're getting guests on that like we might meet outside of the venue, at least me, trying to get autographs, but like to bring him in long format to talk the intro to Deftones or the legacy of Quicksand it's really I'm kind of beside myself in the fact that like I didn't think this was possible, really.
But it was, and we did it. And hey, we're here for any of these conversations. We love talking to people that share in our kind of nerdery aspect of how things work, and the how and the why, as Tuan always says, the how and the why. We want to know what happened, how it happened, why it happened, and not just, oh, that's a cool song, I'm on to the next thing, like a lot of people. We want to dig deeper on that, and that's what you're going to get here from us. And I mean, we've been doing it now for 2+ years, 111 episodes, and we got more in the hopper, man. We're going to keep rolling.
Yeah, I agree. Someone like that, and as I told him, I mean, I've had a Quicksand poster on the wall for years, you know, and to chat with him, it's I mean, that discography is untouchable. Slip in a Minute, Compression, Interiors was a great comeback album, and then Distant Populations from last year was I actually forgot to put in my top releases for some reason, but it was definitely up there. So to chat with him, you add in the Deftones legacy, which is kind of cherry on the top. I mean, most people would be satisfied with the Quicksand legacy alone.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's a full circle nerd moment for us. It's an exciting thing. Never thought it would happen, but here we are.
All right, so hit us up, podioslave.com, at podioslave, Twitter, Instagram, all the socials that you can find, and you know, the DMs are open and all that fun stuff. And hit us on Gmail if you want, podioslavepodcast@gmail.com. I know that we are pretty active there. It may take us a day or 3 to answer you, but we will answer you because we love this stuff and we love to nerd out. So thank you guys for checking us out, and you know, we'll be back next week with more, and you're gonna love it. I'm telling you right now, it's gonna be pretty badass again.
Yeah, nerds, brace yourself for more nerdery. It's on. We're fucking stoked, and it's I feel like we're on this really crazy train right now in terms of talent, and just we're on just an amazing ride. The cadence right now is insane. I'm happy to be back, and yeah, tune in because it's getting better by the moment, so it's really cool.
See you next week, everyone.
Peace, podheads.
Peace. Cheers.